In the darkest years of World War II, when nations collapsed, armies fell, and hope was fading like dim light on a distant horizon, one unknown soldier carried a burden larger than entire battalions. His name was Alexei Morozov, a quiet man from a small, frozen village, a man who never dreamed of war, glory, or medals. Yet destiny had chosen him, not to survive history, but to change it. Before the war, Alexei lived an ordinary life. He woke every morning to the bitter, cold wind, walked through the snow to his father's workshop, and spent long hours repairing broken tools for villagers. He was quiet, disciplined, and thoughtful. People often said, Alexei speaks less, but sees more. No one knew how true those words would soon become. In 1941, when the war struck his homeland like a thunderstorm, Alexei was forced into the Red Army. For months, he trained relentlessly, marching through mud, carrying rifles heavier than his tired arms, and listening to commanders shouting orders louder than exploding shells. Yet, Alexei never complained. The war was bigger than him, bigger than any man. His first mission changed everything. In December, a brutal winter storm swept across the Eastern Front. Snow fell so thick that soldiers could barely see their own boots. Alexei's unit was sent to scout a destroyed village that intelligence feared had been captured by enemy forces. The wind howled like a wounded beast as Alexei marched with his squad, each step sinking deep into the frozen earth. But when they reached the village, silence. No gunshots. No shouting, no movement. The entire place looked dead. Houses shattered, doors torn off, smoke rising from burnt rooftops. Alexei sensed something wrong. His instincts, sharp as winter ice, told him this silence was a trap. But before he could warn his commander, a sudden explosion ripped through the air. Soldiers screamed as bullets rained down from every direction. In a matter of minutes, his whole squad was gone. Alexei dropped behind a collapsed wooden wall, snow and dust choking his lungs. The world spun around him as he heard the enemy closing in. But instead of panicking, he did something none of his commanders ever taught him. He listened. He counted footsteps. He noted the direction of gunfire. He studied the pattern of shadows moving behind the ruined buildings. Alexei realized there weren't many enemies, only a small ambush team, and if he didn't act, his sacrifice would be meaningless. With nothing left but courage and a half-loaded rifle, Alexei moved silently through the ruins. His boots made no sound on the snow. His breath remained steady. He became like a ghost, seen by none, heard by none. One by one, he eliminated the ambushers. It wasn't rage that drove him. It wasn't revenge. It was duty. By dawn, the gunfire had stopped. Smoke hovered over the village like a shroud of death. And Alexei Morozov, once a simple tool repairman, stood alone among the ruins. He had saved no one. There was no one left to save. But he had stopped the ambush that would have wiped out many more incoming troops. His mission report shocked the command division. They said, "One man did this alone?" But this was only the beginning. A few weeks later, Alexei was assigned to a reconnaissance group near a rail line used by the enemy to transport ammunition. The area was heavily guarded, and destroying the line would delay enemy operations by weeks, perhaps even months, a mission critical for the war. But the team sent to complete it never returned. So command turned to Alexei again. He did not refuse. He did not hesitate. Under the cloak of night, he crawled for miles through snow, mud, and barbed wire. The moonlight reflected off the icy ground, revealing enemies everywhere. Watchtowers, dogs, armed guards. A normal soldier would have retreated, but Alexei was not a normal soldier anymore. He observed quietly, memorizing guard movements, timing patrol cycles, calculating every possibility. At exactly 2:17 a.m., he slipped through a breach in the fence. Inside the rail compound, massive crates, stacked with explosives, reached the height of houses. Any alarm would mean instant death. But Alexei was calm. He planted charges beneath the main support beams of the rail bridge. Every second felt like a lifetime. Sweat froze on his eyebrows. His heartbeat echoed like drums in his ears. Yet his hands never shook, not once. When he finally retreated to a safe distance and detonated the explosives, the earth shook like thunder. Fire swallowed the sky. Crates of ammunition erupted into explosions that lit up the entire valley. The enemy scrambled in panic. Their supply chain collapsed overnight, and that one act shifted the balance of the Eastern Front. Alexei Morozov had become more than a soldier. He had become a force of nature. But success comes with a price. After the explosion, the enemy launched a hunt to find the ghost soldier responsible for the destruction. Posters were printed. Patrols increased. Rewards were offered. Alexei knew the danger. He knew capture meant torture, interrogation, and death. Yet, he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The war demanded more, and he was ready to sacrifice everything. For the next few months, Alexei carried out mission after mission, rescuing trapped units, intercepting enemy messages, sabotaging fuel depots, and navigating terrain most soldiers wouldn't dare cross. He never bragged, never sought recognition. He moved like a shadow, appearing only when needed, disappearing before anyone could thank him. But deep inside, a storm was building. The weight of the fallen, the memories of the dead village, the faces of the men he couldn't save. Every night, these ghosts whispered to him, and one night, a message reached him that would change the war forever. A high-ranking enemy officer, carrying plans that could decide the fate of millions, was traveling through a remote forest route. Capturing him could turn the tide of the entire war. Command sent 7 men. Alexei went alone. This is where the true story begins.
The forest was silent that night, too silent. Snow covered the ground like a blanket, hiding old secrets. And the moon cast long, sharp shadows between the trees. Alexei Morozov moved quietly, each step carefully placed. He knew one truth better than any soldier alive. The quieter the forest, the louder the danger. The mission was almost impossible. The enemy officer he was hunting, Colonel Victor Stein, was known for his brutal strategies. Entire towns had been destroyed under his command, and now he carried documents that detailed the next massive assault, plans that could wipe out thousands. Alexei knew he had only one chance. He reached a ridge overlooking a narrow trail. Below, a convoy of dark vehicles crawled through the snow, headlights slicing through the mist. Guards marched alongside, alert, trained, ruthless. No openings, no weaknesses. But Alexei didn't look for weaknesses. He created them. He waited patiently, studying the rhythm of their movement, the timing of their turns, the breath of the wind, the distance between each man. His heartbeat slowed, his mind sharpened. Every second became a calculation. When the lead vehicle approached the sharp bend, he moved, silently, efficiently, fearlessly. He slid down the ridge and placed a small steel wire across the road, low enough to be hidden, high enough to trigger chaos. Then he hid behind a fallen tree, breathing slowly through the cold air. Seconds later, the first vehicle's wheel caught the wire. It skidded, it spun. It flipped onto its side with a deafening crash. Shouts echoed. Guards rushed forward, raising their rifles, scanning the darkness. But Alexei was already behind them, like a shadow. He disarmed one guard with a swift strike. Another fell silently, collapsing into the snow. He didn't kill unless he had to, but he never hesitated when he must. When the smoke cleared, only the central car remained untouched, the one carrying Colonel Stein. Alexei approached cautiously. The door burst open, and the colonel stepped out, pistol in hand. His eyes widened as he realized he stood face to face with the legendary ghost soldier. "You!" the colonel whispered. "You're the one sabotaging everything." Alexei's voice was calm, steady, almost emotionless. "I'm the one stopping you." The colonel fired. Alexei dove behind a trunk as bullets tore through the bark. Snow exploded with each shot. Darkness thickened around them. The forest became a battlefield of shadows and fear. Alexei moved silently from tree to tree, circling the colonel, waiting for the exact moment. Then he saw it, a split-second opening. Alexei emerged from the shadows, grabbed the colonel's arm, twisted it, and knocked the pistol from his hand. The colonel fell to his knees, breathing heavily, defeated, but still defiant. "You won't change anything," Stein spat. "One man can't stop a war." Alexei stared at him. His eyes reflected both pain and determination. "Maybe not. but one man can change the outcome. He bound the colonel and retrieved the metal briefcase from the car. Inside were documents, battle maps, secret codes, the entire blueprint of the enemy's next offensive. This information could save millions. But he wasn't safe yet. Enemy reinforcements were already closing in. Alexei dragged the colonel through the forest, each step more difficult than the last. Branches snapped, shadows moved. The night grew colder. He could feel the enemy tightening around him like a noose. He could not outrun them. He needed another plan. Reaching a frozen river, Alexei looked down at the ice. Cracks spread across it, like veins, dangerous, unstable. But it was also a perfect trap. He placed the colonel beside a tree and whispered, "Do not move." Then he stepped onto the ice, luring the approaching soldiers. His boots slid slightly, making him look vulnerable, exactly what he wanted. Dozens of enemies reached the riverbank and opened fire. Bullets shattered the ice around him, but Alexei ran, not away, but toward the center where the ice was thinnest. The moment the soldiers stepped onto the frozen surface, Alexei dove aside. The ice gave way. Men screamed as the freezing water swallowed them whole. Chaos erupted. The river became a graveyard of broken shards and sinking shadows. Alexei pulled himself onto solid ground, shivering, exhausted, but alive. He returned to the colonel, grabbed the briefcase, and whispered, "The war ends differently now." By dawn, Alexei had reached the hidden Allied outpost. The officers couldn't believe what they saw. A lone soldier carrying the most important documents of the war and a captured enemy commander. The information Alexei delivered that morning changed everything. Plans were rewritten, offensives were halted. Thousands of soldiers who would have died survived. Alexei didn't stay for the applause. He didn't wait for medals. He disappeared before sunrise, leaving the officers to marvel at what one man had done. But his journey was far from over. Days later, news spread across the front lines. The enemy had discovered the identity of the ghost soldier. They had placed the highest bounty of the war on Alexei's head. Posters appeared in every occupied town. Patrols increased. Entire units were sent to hunt one man. Alexei Morozov had become the most wanted soldier in Europe, but he kept moving. From ruined cities to frozen trenches, from burning forests to abandoned bunkers, he continued fighting, saving units, sabotaging assaults, and rescuing prisoners. But inside him, something heavy grew. An invisible wound, the weight of war, the burden of every fallen comrade, the cold whisper that no matter how many lives he saved, he could never save everyone. One night, sitting alone beside a small fire, he looked at his trembling hands and whispered, "I am one man, but I will carry their hope." From that moment on, Alexei fought not for victory, but for humanity, for the nameless, for the forgotten, for the world that needed one man brave enough to stand alone. And soon, he would face the mission that would decide the fate of the entire war. A mission no one else could survive, a mission only he could complete. The final chapter of The Ghost Soldier was about to begin.